Are you familiar with that guy who calls himself Bill Nye, the science guy? Wears the bow tie. I'd say bow ties, I think, look ridiculous. Oh, it's 1953 all over again. These are the things that Irving R. Levine and some of these other old codgers used to wear on television. 9:34, Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com at 70. On our way, probably well into the 90s today, and maybe well over 100 tomorrow in some spots of the Magic Valley. Reminder that our friend Dr. Eric F. Jones is still looking for new patients. He uses a holistic systemic approach to wellness and has been practicing now for nearly a quarter century. He has master's and doctoral degrees in marriage and family therapy. Dr. Eric F. Jones uses methods of alternative healing such as naturopathy, medicinal herbs, nutrition, sound waves, intellectual cognitive self-regulation, and naprathy. These help remedy and manage mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual challenges. He's accepting new patients. He has evening and Saturday appointments available. The telephone number 731-7178. And of course, he's available as well on Facebook. Eric F. Jones, PhD, mental health and wellness therapist. And he spells that name Eric with a C if you're looking for it on Facebook. 9:35, Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Christian Post carries this story today. Bill Nye calls Ark encounter disturbing. Argues every science exhibit absolutely wrong after visit. Now, if you're calling a museum dedicated to Noah's Ark disturbing, then I guess you would be calling the biblical stories related to this to be disturbing, wouldn't you? So then, in other words, Bill Nye, one of the media's favorite spokespersons for these issues, is therefore saying the Bible is disturbing, and then the media then would be in cahoots with him. Well, I think none of us are surprised by that in this day and age. This is the writer Stoyan Zamoff. He says, Bill Nye, the science guy, has reflected on his recent visit to Kentucky's Ark Encounter, the life-size Noah's Ark theme park built by young Earth creationist Ken Ham, by calling it disturbing, arguing that on the Ark's third deck, every single one of the science exhibits is absolutely wrong. Nye told NBC News in a report Saturday that he was very alarmed by what he saw. First of all, NBC couldn't wait to bring him in to say this. He said the Ark Encounter was an eye-catching attraction, but then described the experience as, quote, much more troubling or disturbing than I thought it would be, unquote. I guess he doesn't read the Bible at all, because otherwise he'd roll on the floor in paroxysms, you know. Ah! Although that happened to a fellow by the name of Saul, and it turned out actually in the long run to be very good for him, but I don't think Bill Nye is going to have one of those road to Damascus moments. Ham also talked about Nye's visit in a Facebook post and said that it turned into an almost 2-hour debate as they walked through the 3 decks of the exhibits at the Ark. You know, Nye is not a scientist. He's an engineer, first of all. So there's a difference there. And when he's called Bill Nye, the science guy, media, if he was a Republican, media would be like, well, you're not really a scientist, are you? They would be discrediting him up and down the country and from left coast to right coast. My point, I guess, to be made on all of this is, first of all, evolution, it's still called the theory of evolution. Have you ever noticed that? It's not called the fact of evolution. In fact, if you go look this up, now scientists will say, well, we have a different, when we speak in scientific terms of theory, we have almost irrefutable evidence, but you're still not calling it a fact. Well, that's because we can't prove it. Well, okay, all right, thank you. Thank you for getting that out of the way. Some of you may be familiar with a comedian. He's one of my favorites. His name is Craig Ferguson. He used to have a show on CBS, and he's mainly a stage comedian. He also played Drew Carey's boss on the Drew Carey show back in the 1990s. Many of you don't know probably Craig Ferguson's history. I'll give you just a little bit of this. I've got a couple of minutes before the break. But I was watching Ferguson on his TV show a few years ago, and he was talking about someone that said they had certainty about their faith. Ferguson says, I have faith because I don't have certainty. If you have certainty, you don't need faith. And that's what faith is all about. It's like realizing that not everything can be explained away by the scientists and the so-called experts. Ferguson's story is a little unique. I mean, people see him on TV and probably think, oh, he's got to be a flaming liberal. But he's not. I mean, what I used to love about his show was he would tell jokes about everybody. Everybody. Craig Ferguson nearly died in the early 1990s because he was such a terrible alcoholic. he would fall asleep and not know where he had been and wake up soaked in his own urine. And one day he walked into AA, and it transformed his life. But it was a very Christian-themed AA that he was attending. That stands for Alcoholics Anonymous for you liberals out there. And he had been raised in an evangelical church in Scotland, but had really left it all behind. Now, I know the term born again, people think, well, that's so 70-ish. It's not used much anymore, and people tend to, raise their eyebrows when they hear it. But that's really what Craig Ferguson is. So when he says, if I had certainty, I wouldn't need faith, and I have faith because I don't have certainty, this is a guy who is talking to you from the heart and knows of what he's talking about because he has experienced the depths of life, and he was rescued by faith and a belief in an Almighty that a great many people in media just cannot understand and cannot fathom. Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX and newsradio1310.com at 72. We'll be wrapping up the program in just a few minutes. Maybe some more news coming out of that convention, as well as the Pokemon craze. I know that all of you are involved in that. This audience, of course. Pokey what?